And dog.
Just trying to turn shit to sugar.
Okay, you can't use that word.
Oh, damn it. We got to start again?
You can't use that word.
What, again?
Still sent a message to me. He said, bro, you got to take it easy on the cussing. Almost every video done has a yellow $sign. You can't cuss the first 15 minutes.
Got you. Well, it's been 5.
Man, No Ceilings Live.
Take two.
No Ceilings Live, where we expand on the No Ceilings podcast. A link below. No Ceilings podcast. Go to Apple Podcasts or anywhere you subscribe for podcasts. Look at the link below. Listen to the last podcast. Please subscribe to the No Ceilings podcast ASAP. This is where we just expand on those conversations. No Ceilings Live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, noon Pacific Standard Time. It's the lunch hour. You know what
I have a replacement phrase.
Tell me.
Trying to turn stool to saccharides.
There you go. I like that. Shout out to Eddie. I see you, bro. Much love, my boy. Shout out to Cash. Shout out to Gorilla. You on that truck. I know you getting that money. You feel me? Everybody, make sure y'all check in so we know who rocking, as this journey go. Fats, what's up, baby? Nah, man. Charlemagne got me into podcasting, bro. Like, he always thought I would be a good podcaster. I didn't really think so, but I also didn't think I would be a good gang member, and that kind of worked out for me. So, I just took I heeded the advice, and now this is a way for us to kind of bring, because we don't shoot our podcast. We don't have a video component. You feel me? And I haven't produced something that I thought was quite well enough visually. Like I'm people think I'm a perfectionist, but really I'm a professional. So everything to me is about being professional. You know what I'm saying? That's the cornerstone of what I do. So I just like to be professional. So I didn't want to just shoot something because I can. I need to get the right. I had a gaffer come to the studio so he could light the studio. You know what I mean? I got sets. Like I'm finna use a set for an interview this week. You know what I'm saying? So it's yeah, I take it serious. I'm really a professional. You know what I mean? So this is all about promoting the No Ceilings podcast. The link below, make sure y'all click it. Executive produced by Charlemagne the God, Black Effects Network, and iHeart. So shout out to Dante Scott. I see you, bro. Shout out to Chaos. What up, cuz? What's happening? I gotta send over your damn I ain't forgot about you. Your side artist agreement. My bad, bro. I'm again, sometimes I take on a lot of tasks because I know what needs to be done. Forgive me, brother. I'm gonna make sure I make that happen. You won't wait, another day. I'm gonna make it my business. Shout out to living in Beaumont, California. Shout out to my boy Gene. What's happening? You know what I mean? Real fam, 110 fam. We built them cars and do that stuff. Which is also the group, the album I'm working on, the 110 album. Me, Joey Westside, Douche Mac. It's a special album. But y'all didn't come here to talk about the music. We could talk about the music, but y'all didn't come here for that. Y'all came for the truth. This is like the sermon. So I had a question, Pete, because I saw an interview happening, and they were talking about this Ron Jeremy, like the porn star Ron Jeremy. He shot a film in 1984.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's called Springtime in the Rockies.
Okay.
And the guy on the interview was saying he watched, like, Ron Jeremy's character in the film. He was looking through binoculars in a cabin at his old lady and another woman. You feel me? Like, lesbians can't have sex, but whatever,
messing around in some capacity.
Yeah, they were doing something that was a little perverted. I would never refer to two lesbians.
I don't think we can say the word lesbians in the first 15 minutes.
lesbians is actually the correct terminology. We just can't say the other stuff. But look, so he said Ron Jeremy was looking through binoculars, watching, you know what I mean, watching the lesbians, you know, do whatever act that is that they call.
So both the Noculars and his wife were bi?
Yes. Yeah.
Good
There
to
you
know.
go, the Noculars. So anyway, he said Ron Jeremy started to touch on himself, right? The word would be to stroke himself, right? And then he got so excited that he started giving himself oral copulation.
What?
Fellatio. And he watched the porn, and I'm thinking to myself, like, and it was DJ Vlad. Shout out to Vlad. Shout out to Carlos Mencia, the comic. And he was just, it sounded like he was jealous that the man could suck his own penis. So I thought to myself, like, even if, you know, my private parts were long enough for me to lean over and actually suck, I don't think I would want a penis in my mouth. I don't care if it's my own penis. I think
At best, that can only be palatable for so long. At best.
I just don't know. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
I'll say this much. There's not a world in which I am completing that task in my own mouth.
Yeah,
I can tell you that much.
I just don't think. I think any penis in your mouth could make you a part of the community. Even your own penis.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help.
And I just listened to him. And I think that's the pleasures of not. I just thought to myself, like, why would you want a penis in your mouth?
That is
even if it's your own, like,
I think psychologically you'd have to be like looking past that on just a hell-bent heat-seeking missile mission for self-gratitude. You know, it's like you just like I'm suspending all considerations except I need to make this feel good or better, and that's it. Just single mission, you know, target.
I didn't get that. I just, it's like, why would you want that in your mouth? That even your own, like, and Carlos was like, yeah, I wouldn't leave the house, and I'm like, so you would just daily have a penis inside of your mouth?
I mean, what's even more probably to this point is you would have the objective in mind to improve that skill set.
Yeah, like, so you would be sucking. Yeah, that's just crazy. I can't. Yeah. I really don't get it.
You'd be working on your motion.
I always thought this, Pete. Everybody outside of the ghetto, and I don't know if it's more of a phobe thing with people in the ghetto, but it seems like a lot of people out the ghetto are a lot more loose with their sexuality. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think, obviously, you know, there are homosexual people that came from the ghetto, but it ain't loose. Like, you don't really just cross over. Usually, you know, like even the jokes, like, I didn't know if it was a joke or for real.
Sure. The joke part and the perception part, I understand. I don't know from behind closed doors. There's a lot of nefariousness the world over, you know, insofar as what people do that they don't publicize. So I don't know. I totally understand because there's more of a dog eat dog type of environment.
Yeah.
Where you really do not want questionable perceptions to be aired about you. That is less forgiving in that environment for sure.
Well, I decided for sure this is No Ceilings Live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon right here on the Digital Soapbox Network on YouTube, where we promote No Ceilings, the podcast. Link below. You feel me? Go subscribe to the No Ceilings podcast on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. So it brought me to this conversation and this thought. This was a thought I had. I'm not going to avoid the Diddy conversation anymore. I don't care if I talk about it 100 times this year. Oh. Like it's really that grand of an idea from a legal standpoint. You know, every part of the case is huge.
Yeah.
You feel me? So again, noon Pacific Standard Time. If you own the West, it's Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. if you own the East, 2 p.m. if you in the Midwest. So I'm not going
legal aspect of it.
Conversations. I'm not going to avoid conversations that this case can inspire. And one of the things I thought about was the concept of coercion versus consent. That was important to me, Pete. I was like, So there's a part where Cassie talked about it in her, her civil suit where she said Puff forced her to have sex, right, with men. And the men were prostitutes.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So he was paying the men to sleep with his old lady, and he would watch from another room, which is crazy because it's just like this Ron Jeremy, porn from 1984. Go ahead.
There is obviously, understandably, some vindictive type of side value for her in airing all of this stuff out and whatnot. I would like Cassie to have included, if you're going to go vindictive, go full vindictive and say, even though the other men were far more gratifying to be with to me than Mr. Combs was, I still felt that it was not appropriate and maybe very uncomfortable, even though I liked their penises better. I would like her to say something like that just to get more of a personal, degrading dig in for the sake of it.
No, yeah, totally. Again, what's coercion?
All coercion is raising the offer. That's all it is. Want to do this? No. When you want to, what if I, do something for you? You can do something for me. I want you to do this for me. No, I don't want to. Well, what if in exchange I do that? No. Well, what if in exchange I do that? Now we're talking. That's all coercion largely is. Or I won't do this to you if you do that, which is more so threatening than coercion. I don't know where the line is between coercion and threatening.
I mean, is it really a threat if somebody said, okay, let's break it down into simple terms. Let's back up into the most primitive place. Okay. Puff likes watching his old lady, have sex with men, right? So he pays prostitutes, male prostitutes, right? Simple as that, right? Okay, cool. And in that time, right, in that consideration, he tells Cassie, say, hey, Cassie, I like my girls to have sex with other men so I can watch. That's how I stimulate myself, intimately, right? Okay. And she's like, I'm not really with that, Puff. And he like, well, you can't be my girl if you're not with that.
Yeah. Is there still a market where one could receive financial compensation for sleeping with Cassie, or is that no longer an offer that's available?
I would imagine cucking, right, is a profitable business. So maybe not Cassie anymore. I don't know about the fitness trainer.
But there's not an immediate cash price for sleeping with Cassie available now. probably not.
No, not with Puff being in prison.
That's unfortunate. What with the month coming to a close, sort of soon.
Sure, yeah. It's a lot of money not in these streets anymore. Lot of money
This
not
is
in these
bad. See, for every RICO case, there is an impending need for a stimulus bill.
Yes. So, okay. But after I explain that story, so again, right, Puff is a cuck. He likes watching his old lady have sex with other men.
Yeah.
Right? He enjoys that. And he tells Cassie, hey, for me to enjoy and truly experience the finest level of pleasure in intimacy, I need to watch you be intimate with another man.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Cassie, I would hope Cassie responds, right? You know what? I don't really like that. Like, I got with you to be with you. And he like, well, this is what I enjoy. And Cassie's like, no, I don't want to do this. And he's like, well, look, you can't be with me. All the pleasures and the benefits and the economic pluses you get for being with me, this will not be available to you anymore if you don't do what I like intimately.
Sure.
Is that really coercion? Like, the letter versus the spirit, Pete.
I mean, could you imagine the anguish of a woman like Cassie with a regular job?
Oh, man. Oh, no, I couldn't imagine the anguish.
And neither can she.
But is it really coercion? Y'all tell me, comment, is it really coercion? Let me explain the premise one more time. Let me triple down on the premise one more time. If the guy you're dating, shout out to Stephanie D, she in the chat all the time, showing love, much love, Queen. Stephanie, if a guy says to you, it's a guy that's wealthy, he's paid, and you're with him because you do like him, you do love him, but also it comes with this luxurious lifestyle, right? And he says, okay, hey, Steph, I enjoy my woman sleeping. For me to experience maximum erotic pleasures, I need my woman to sleep with another man. And Steph, you like, nah, I really ain't into that. You know what I mean? That's not my thing. He like, well, look, I'm not going to be with you if you're not going to do what I want you to do for me to enjoy this intimate, relationship at the highest level. And you decide like, well, you know what? I like him enough to stay with him. The life is luxurious enough. I'll make the sacrifices, the concession of what I like versus what he like. Did he really coerce you? That's the question. Like some of this stuff is just ridiculous. Like,
let's start with a baseline standard. What would be an acceptable illustration of coercion? At some point, if we're drifting into the waters of, if that's not coercion, then what is? And does the concept of coercion philosophically even exist, or does it not even exist as it's being presented, in the modern language?
What fits the spirit of the coercion, the law and coercion? Let me look up the definition just so I'm not tripping. Let me just make sure, because coercion is not one of my words. Like racketeering for sure is one of my words.
Actual or threatened force for the purpose of compelling action by another person.
Well, I got the practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats.
Gotcha. Oh, here's a good definition. A specific instance of coercing. Why even fucking write that? Damn it. Why even write that down?
Well, we 22 minutes. We cool. We're supposed to be 15 minutes.
Cool.
So yeah. No Ceilings Live. Again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Pacific Standard Time. Okay, yes. Okay, so let's get a clear definition. If he says, hey, Cassie, if you don't let this man do this to you for my enjoyment, right? If you don't let this man do this for my enjoyment, I'm going to murder you.
Yeah, I mean, because it comes down to like, if we're talking umbrellas, is coercion the umbrella that sits above both simultaneously, the umbrellas of bribery and threat? If that's what I'm gathering, in other words, is both carrot and stick coercion either which way?
Well, I guess when the term is force or threat, that's what I'm looking for.
That
force
feels more like stick than carrot.
Well, and then they talked about another specific thing, right, that they're using where Puff invited some girl to one of the parties. The girl came with her guy, and they said Puff made the guy give him fellatio, made him suck his penis. And I'm like, well, how did he make you?
Under threat of what? Having to go home? If you don't do this, you're going home, mister. You're going to be right where you started 45 minutes ago.
And to me, this goes back to that R. Kelly stuff and different things where, again, I think these two brothers really could be charged with crimes based off of videos we saw, reputations they have. But I just think it's a bit hasty what they're doing. And it's starting to look very systemic as a tool to oppress successful brothers. Some of the charges are ridiculous. Like, how did he make another man? Like, what does that coercion look like? Now, again, if he told that brother, hey, if you don't suck my penis, right, I'm going to have these guards kill you.
Yeah. I would imagine it's probably at worst, if I had to speculate, you and your girl are here. Your girl's here. If you don't suck my dick, you're going home alone. And she's going to suck all these dicks. In which case, I'm still going home alone.
Living in Beaumont, California, it was an unspoken side of the contract that Puffy was implementing on Cassie, which included, if you don't, I'm going to torture you.
Torture her with what?
With what?
Median living standards?
I don't. So he has a torture case. I just think the charges at that point would look a lot different.
At some point, people are going to start wondering, boy, where's Cassie? We haven't seen her in like 3 years.
It's like, I think, some of this stuff is just, and they forcing me to have to deal with it intellectually, right? Because some of it is so just over the top. Like,
yeah. And another aspect of this is a district, as we've seen, not only from the attorney's side, there's no scrupulous judges there. Some of this stuff should get kicked out of court. There's not a judge with a backbone over there.
They taking every big fact. I don't know, living in Beaumont, that don't even make sense. Again, if they could prove, or if they would charge, torturing is a real crime. They would charge him with that crime. That's serious, man. That ain't like, I think I was talking to my nephew Chris. Shout out to Chris Steele, Norm's. I hate calling him Big Steele, my big brother. That's his son. Shout out to Chris. And we were trying to talk to him, and just listening to him explain why he thought Puff should be in jail for prison. And I was like, this don't strike you as weird at all? Like, you don't look and be like, damn, like Puff is a mob boy? Like, when we walk these streets, like, listen, if John Gotti came down the street, I would look and I'd be like, oh, that's John Gotti. Like, I would know that this is a real problem if I have a problem. Puff walked down the street. Yeah, he got security guards, but I never got a threat on my life when he's walking down the street. Okay, it's some bad dudes. Like, You know what I mean? But it just comes across very mobbish. I appreciate you living in Beaumont. I was critically thinking what you are. Yeah, that's true. And we need, that's the point of No Ceilings. No Ceilings is all about critical thought. We call it No Ceilings because there's really no top to these conversations. Like we'll go all the way in the cave. We're not gonna, we gonna go all the way. We don't care what it feels like. We'll have that conversation. Eddie, the reason I care about it is because, okay, here's a perfect example, Eddie. Last night, I came up with an idea for a great film, right? About Jack Johnson, the fight of the century. He was fighting Jim Jeffries. Jack Johnson was the first brother who became a heavyweight champion in America. This is roughly 100 years ago, a tad over 100 years ago, right? So it's maybe 2 lifetimes ago, really 1 lifetime ago, but 2 lifetimes ago, just to be certain. They didn't want a brother to be the heavyweight champion of America. They didn't want that, right? So they would deny most Black people a shot at the heavyweight title, right? The last great champion before Jack Johnson got his shot was a guy named Jim Jeffries, who retired undefeated. He was smacking everything. He was a bad man, great hands. He's from Canada too. Great white fighter, just incredibly great fighter to be a white man. I mean, not to be a white man, but a really great fighter that's a white man from Canada. So he retires. The championship goes through a couple hands. And the guy that wins is like, look, if I'm going to be the champion of the world, I'm going to fight all fighters. I need to be the greatest champion, not the greatest heavyweight champion of only white fighters, but I need to be the greatest heavyweight champion of all fighters. And shout out to that dude. I'm gonna get his name. Forgive me for giving that brother a chance at his heavyweight title. Right? Hold on. Really dope white man, and he don't get enough props. But hold on. Here we go. Tommy Burns. Shout out to Tommy Burns, because people don't talk about Tommy Burns, but Tommy Burns single-handedly changed heavyweight boxing by giving a brother a shot. So shout out to Tommy Burns, brother. I know you probably are not alive at this point, but thank God for you, man, for being realistic and wanting to be the best of all fighters. Okay, Eddie, so let me get back to it. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, damn, so Tommy Burns gave him a shot, right? And, okay, great. So white America, right, the system that is here, right, they hated that Jack Johnson he had so much moxie and bravado. He was just winning all the fights. So they made the last champion before Jack Johnson, the last great champion, right, come out of retirement. He had been retired for 3 or 4 years, and they overpaid him because they thought that Jim Jeffries was great enough to beat Jack Johnson. They're like, if you just get back into shape, you will beat this guy. Obviously white athletes are superior to Black athletes. So if you get back into shape, so forth and so on, right? Okay, so just stay with me. So Jim Jeffries loses 100 pounds. He gets back in tip-top shape. Yeah, he was big. He was over 300 pounds. Right, so he gets back in the tip-top shape. Right, he gets back in the tip-top shape. He trains. Everybody, they swear Jim Jeffries is going to beat prime Jack Johnson.
5 years later, when he's finally ready to fight.
It's like, so they like, we don't care. Even to pass his prime, Jim Jeffries is going to beat, in his prime, Jack Johnson. So the fight happens July 4th, 1910. Fight of the century. Biggest deal in the world. Every white person came into town and said, you know what? At the end of the day, Jim Jeffries is going to reclaim the throne. Even Jim Jeffries said, I'm going to reclaim the heavyweight title for the right race, because Lord knows we cannot let these brothers feel like they are superior in any way. And they got paid somewhere they split near 150,000. Now, mind you, this is in 1910, and they were supposed to take a profit of the film, as people used to go around and show the film in different movie theaters for everybody. right? Hold on, Eddie, I got you. We're going to get to it. Just bear with me. I know it's story time. Just bear with me. So they get into, they have the fight. The fight is scheduled for 45 rounds, right?
Jesus Christ.
Yes. They're filling each other out, right? 3-4 rounds. Obviously, Jack Johnson.
They're filling each other out for 25 rounds.
Obviously, Jack Johnson's in the prime of his career. He's an active fighter. So Jack Johnson starts to pull away. They get to round 15, Eddie. They get to round 15. Jack Johnson drops him. He probably drops him 4 or 5 times. He's about to knock him out. The police jump in the ring, Eddie, and stop Jack Johnson from knocking him out, and they declare him the winner. Eddie, white America got so upset that there were different lynch mobs of white people going around and killing black people across America to make sure we didn't think that black people could be successful. Like they was like, we're going to beat, you want to be happy that Jack Johnson beat our champion. We're going to beat you, hang you, and destroy you.
As a white person, I find it incredibly disappointing that there was probably not one lynch mob that went after that fat fuck who let himself get so out of shape.
No, because, I mean,
you gotta uphold some standards.
He retired, Pete. You can do what you want to do when you retire. Yeah, he's been staying in shape for years.
Just stay the fuck retired.
They offered the money, and he really got convinced. He really got convinced that, that all he had to do was show up in shape. Even at 35, 36 years old, he was going to beat prime Jack Johnson. He really thought they had him gassed.
Funny. Should have kept those calories on deck for a fight with 45 rounds.
Right, but he did lose 100 pounds. He looked good when the fight happened. They got a video of it, and it's dope to be 1910. All right, Eddie. So white people got so upset in America that they went around to all these different states where they start killing and hurting and hanging black people because we were celebrating. Because we were celebrating. We're not 150 years. We're not 3 lifetimes away from that, Eddie. We're not 3 lifetimes away from that. Yes, Diddy is a lot of things. He's a sex deviant. He's a very awkward and weird guy when it comes to intimate things in a bedroom. Totally agree. He likes some crazy stuff. He's a different dude. And I'm sure to some degree he got some social issues. I saw a video where he was jumping on this old lady, minus what happened before. You know, and that's fine. Charge him with spousal abuse. But you cannot make me think in my mind that this system has changed enough to where they're not going to trump up charges on a wealthy black person to make sure black people know to stay in their place. And yes, they can use black people to do that now because the system, while we say white people, it's more a reflection on the system and poor people. You know what I mean? So again, Eddie, like him being weird does not mean I should not be mindful of how they treat him. You know, even some of the worst brothers, you know, throughout black people in America, even the Candace Owens, they still are brothers and sisters. So it is still our responsibility to make sure that those people get fair treatment. Listen, when they pulled over Rodney King, right, he was drunk and he was doing 100, right? He was drunk and he was doing 100 miles per hour, right? That's true. And he should have went to prison. You know, that's dangerous. But you cannot whoop him on the freeway like he's your child. All 5 or 6 of y'all. That's not fair, Eddie. That's the problem. That's my problem now with Diddy. Treat the man fair. I didn't want to talk about the Mann Act, Magic John. I'm sorry. Shout out to Magic John in the chat. He said, bro, you're going to lose people. Get to the point. Let the people know that's why the Mann Act was created. Yes. And they used it 100 years later on Diddy. So again, let's get back and I'll bring the story together. The reason this is important to talk about Jack Johnson, the Mann Act was created because Jack Johnson was sleeping with white women and married to white women. He was over the top and he felt nobody could do anything and he did what he wanted to do. So they created a law, a federal law that prohibited Jack Johnson from taking white women across state lines with intentions to have sex with them. That's the same thing Diddy was charged with. That's the same thing they're doing to Puff. This is important. Like, to get it right. To get it right, you gotta treat this man fair. Daryl Jackson, Diddy became drunk with power, not to mention the drugs exacerbated his thirst for control. He needs help more than incarceration. I totally agree. Because he was not only drunk with power, he was high off drugs and drunk off alcohol. So I agree. I do think there is some things that he should answer for, like all of us, even anybody in the underworld. But it should be fair, Eddie. It should be fair, Eddie. Listen, yes, Hollywood has a weird thing, but this is not Hollywood. These are all regular people. It's people in this chat that are just like Diddy if they had money. Shout out to my brother Gene. Trump gave Jack Johnson a pardon 100 years later. That's how long it took America to correct the mistreatment of Jack Johnson. Look how long it took America to apologize for the 3 strikes. So we should stop it ahead of time. I agree, Stephanie D. That's a great point. Stephanie D says they also use the Mann Act on R. Kelly. And that's what I've been saying, Steph. Stephanie D says they also use the Mann Act on R. Kelly. A lot of people don't even know what he was actually convicted of. Kelly's trial was the blueprint for what they are doing to Diddy. He won't be the last. And that's why our voices, Stephanie, are important to protest injustice, mistreatment, even of society's worst. Even of society's worst, even of society's most sexual deviant, it should still be fair. That's important. Even Diddy, yes, he could be a scumbag. Yes, people felt like he wasn't fair on his record contracts. Yes, he fought his old lady. Yes, he really had these free calls and he had 1,000 bottles of lube. And yes, he paid prostitutes, but that don't mean you should be able to mistreat him for the benefit of your career. And that's my point, MC, bro. You know, like they can start to do this to anybody, because if society becomes numb and on a false sense of morality, guess what? That's when they can strike the best. Don't get me wrong. Like if you think about the 3 strikes law, remember the bourgeoisie of Black America brought that to, brought their issues to white justice to solve the problem. They came up with the 3 strikes. Again, you fast forward, now everybody sees it's wrong. It was wrong then, but there wasn't loud voices to say, hey, that's not right. Go ahead, Pete, I'm sorry.
What?
You was going to say something and I was going.
No, I don't think so.
So yeah, it's really important, that people get treated fair, even the worst, even the morally low of us, even Rodney King, who's doing 110 in a Hyundai, drunk as a skunk, he doesn't deserve for all 6 of those police to sit around and beat him with a billy club. Yes, you should not be doing 100 miles per hour down a freeway drunk. That is dangerous. Well, guess what? You have laws, you have prisons. That's the point of justice. You cannot issue justice right then and there because it makes you no different than me. It makes you no different than a gang member. If you take justice into your own hands, then you, at that point, what is that called, Pete? An outlaw.
Yeah.
A vigilante.
That's why, like, I don't get, I get, but I don't agree with. And it's like a manifestation, like the conversation where if the police wrongfully in error, like kill a Black person in the arrest process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll see a year later, the same people mad about that, mad that some like egregious white criminal is taken in to custody successfully. Colors, I don't really give a shit. It's the integrity of process. Shooting the second guy doesn't help the integrity of the process. I don't mean the process of arresting somebody. I mean the process of the full legal gamut of your rights being able to be, exercised.
Yeah.
So, obviously you don't want somebody errantly killed in the arrest process. That's the problem. Make sure that doesn't happen. Don't retributively try to then apply this death standard to all arrests. It's like, no, you don't want the death standard. You want no errant deaths in arrests.
And that should be the problem, Pete. But, as much as we would like to avoid color or race, you just can't, because people notice.
Sure, I get it.
And that's the point.
I get it.
Like people are already programmed to think what they're going to think. And it's a way that it all goes back to reparations, man. It's hard for 300 years. You could buy somebody that looked like me, and you think 140 years after, you're going to treat them with the same integrity that you treat people that look like you. You know what I mean? It worked out for you, but it don't work out for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, imagine, I always compare it to this, and people kind of get upset, but just walk with me. Imagine like humanity started understanding dogs. Like when dogs like bark, those barks changed into words. Right? Those sounds change into words, and you started understanding everything a dog was saying. And then the dogs came together and they all started to say, hey, we don't want to be your pet. We don't want to be your pet. We want to go out in the world and live our own life. Right? And some politician comes to play and say, hey, you know what? We need to free your pets. You should not be the master of them. You don't own them. They are not yours. They have a right to go where they want to go, and you have no control over it. Imagine how hard it would be, even years later, for people to let go of the concept of having a pet. Like, how do you change years and years of programming of like, oh, you know what? This is my dog, to the day your dog is like, yeah, I want to do my own thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think that would be hard for humanity. It would be really hard for humanity. And I think that's the problem here now. And so even somebody like Diddy, like I'm telling my nephew, I'm like, look, bro, Diddy, as a sexual deviant as he is, he still deserves fair. Every human deserves fair. Even the worst of us deserve fair, because if it's an injustice to the worst of us, bet your bottom dollar, eventually it's going to be an injustice to the best of us.
Yeah, especially in courts of law, because courts of law do what? They create precedent. And he's a guy who has money to do what? Appeal.
Yes.
So if he goes through this thing and appeals and is in an appellate district that sucks and loses, now what? It's case law.
Yeah.
So it's bigger and broader than him and that.
Exactly. But even to me, somebody said it could be me. And I'm like, well, it wouldn't be that, because I'm not into that. But I know what Misjustice feels like. I know what Misjustice feels like, sure. But we still can't do it just because it's him. Minus the possibility it could be us. We shouldn't let it happen to just him. Just him. You know what I mean? Just him. It should never happen to just him. Like, people, you got to be fair, and that's my thought. So back to the original point, like, what are we saying is coercion? If coercion ain't saying like I'm going to kill you, which is a different type of threat, that's actually like a terrorist threat to some degree. That's a different charge. But if the equivalent of like let's say even like a Harvey Weinstein, if the equivalent is, hey, if you don't suck my penis, you don't get this job.
Yeah,
which is
just as equally that, and that's the issue. It's a statement of the negative. It's coercion. in a statement of the affirmative, it's bribery. Hey, I'll tell you what, lady, your acting isn't worth a fucking damn. But if you suck my dick, I'll give you that part over there. Sounds a whole lot different than, hey, you don't suck my dick, you never get that movie.
Either way, it's not coercion.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the packaging.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it could definitely be received a certain way.
Because this is always, if you don't do this, then there won't be blank. And that's a threat of taking something from you that you would think that you have that you started with. I guess technically Cassie had access to the black card or whatever the hell, her spending medium du jour was. And then after a month of that, hey, I got this male prostitute I want to watch knock you down. If you don't do that, that leased Lambo in the driveway is going back to the dealer. So
shout out to Magic John. 528 hertz. That's sexual harassment, sir. That's not what harassment is.
Well, sexual harassment is like a largely civil issue in the workplace. I never heard of a sexual harassment case being brought in the domestic variety.
Yeah, that's not sexual harassment.
I could be wrong, but
like if your old lady is married, okay, we're gonna have a big boy conversation now. I agree. We have created a society where women don't have to be accountable. So let's start there. We have decided as a collective, even if some men don't agree, women will not be accountable. We all know this, but we gotta be honest. If a woman says, if you don't take me to this restaurant, right, I'm not going out with you, right? I'm not going out with you, that wouldn't be coercion.
And I've openly stated that all relationships are giant extortion rackets. Because at the end of the day, no matter how far you drive down that path, you're going to hit a cul-de-sac and it's going to be, look, I want blank because that guy's got a dick and a credit card too.
If your girl, if you're in a relationship with your girl, Daryl, it's important, Daryl. And Daryl Jackson, shout out to Daryl Jackson. Shout out to Living in Beaumont. Shout out to Stephanie D still in the chat. Gala Flores. Shout out to the homie Fats. We still rocking. So let's get this right. So if your old lady wants you to pay the mortgage and you didn't pay it this month and she has to pay it, and she says, I am not sleeping with you until you pay the mortgage, that's not coercion. Right? That's what you're saying, right? This is my point, Magic. That's not coercion. That's the same thing. That's the same thing. People use what other people want to their benefit all the time.
It just happens to be largely that in dealings of men and women, the default is men withhold money for sex, women withhold sex for money. So the perception of...
Say that again. Please say that again.
Men withhold money for sex, women withhold sex for money. So therefore, when you're talking about a coercive type of nature, one is defined by a depravity, the other is defined by an unwilling action as product of that basic primitive understanding.
Stephanie D says that's an ultimatum whether a man or woman does it. Steph, I agree, but guess what that is for Puff? An ultimatum. If his thing is you don't get this job, same for Harvey Weinstein, you won't get this job, that's an ultimatum. That's like these are...
I believe ultimatum is a synonym for choice.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's a great point. Shout out to Diddy in the chat. Coercion is the act of forcing someone to act against their will through the use of threats, intimidation, or force. Or threats, intimidation, or force.
What that really means is there is threats, intimidation, and force. Other than force, The other two are very opaque, abstract nouns. You can pack a lot of words into the threat jar.
Or intimidation jar.
Yeah. I mean, intimidate. If you don't do this, I'm going to make sure you feel very intimidated. I guess that would be the threat of intimidation. The intimidation would be implied.
I don't know if money, right, it falls under threat, intimidation, or force.
It would be the depravity thereof.
That's what I'm saying, MC. When you saying Diddy did all of that, though, he used money. He said, look, my threat is I will take the money from you. There are conversations of him saying to people on his team, he will kick their ass, and I agree, right? That is a threat. Kicking ass is force. The fact that I could kick your ass and I stand over you in a posture to let you know I'm going to kick your ass is intimidation. But to say you're not going to get this money is not threat, intimidation, or force. Yes, it falls under threat. If I say I'm not going to pay you, that is a threat.
I have pinpointed where Diddy went wrong.
Tell me.
Diddy started off effectively giving away the farm to Cassie and then working a reverse salary negotiation against said farm. If he just simply said, yeah, we're dating and financially you're on your own, but here's some potential incentive actions that you could be a part of should you so choose. Now, in the affirmative, she is participating in things for the opportunity directly to have blank, rather than for participating in things for fear of the reduction of blank. Bottom line is always no guaranteed free meals.
Magic John. Diddy was flying sex workers to his party, so they are hitting with pimping and pandering. The problem with that,
he's
John,
not doing the pimping.
Yeah, he's Magic John.
He's soliciting.
Coincidentally, like the name in your handle, he's a John. Like if you're going down Figueroa and you buy a prostitute, that is not pimping or pandering.
Yeah.
He is the buyer. He is not the dealer. If you give away drugs, they cannot charge you with possession for sales.
Well, intent to distribute, but just the same. If you just buy wholesale for your own personal use.
He's a John, Magic. That's the problem. Like simple words, like he's a John. He bought prostitutes. I agree with the charge, transportation of prostitution. That fits the actual spirit of the law.
I even disagree with that.
Oh, okay. Break it down.
Because he's not the one transporting them. He's ordering them. If I order something from Amazon, Amazon delivers it. Just because I ordered it, they're still the ones transporting it.
So even if I make it possible for you, you still need to.
Just because you add a second shipping line instead of pricing it into the main price does not mean that somehow now I am the transporter.
Eddie Gala, feds don't play, 99.9% conviction rate. Eddie, because the feds cheat. They steal your money. They will not let you walk the streets. So most people take a plea.
And
the federal government is a very thorough agency, but they are not unbeatable until they handicap everybody they actually go to war with. They handicap they're handicapping Puff now. He offered $50 million saying, if I tried to run, right, you can have this $50 million. They won't even say, well, give us 100. You know why? Because they want him to feel the pressures of being behind those walls. Eventually, they're going to figure out a way to get to his money. So they're not this unbelievable, unbeatable type of organization. They are cheating you. They are cheating you.
One guy I was listening to made a good point. He said the federal versus local law enforcement, their processes are largely adverse to one another. So crime is reported. This guy is the suspect. You know, he's arrested. Then there's the investigation. So therefore, through that investigation, there's an error rate where that guy might not, you know, be charged or convicted. Whereas you're just out living your life and the feds are investigating you until they for sure have an affirmative claim, then they arrest you. So they discriminate out all the potential errant arrests because they wait till it's a closed case before it goes through or you know, through the arrest point via a grand jury. So yeah, because that's the end of their process more so than closer towards the beginning of their process.
Magic John, they are using the fact that he flew out prostitutes to turn it and charge him with sex trafficking. That's why this is a lynching that you're witnessing. Everything they are trying to bankrupt him. I totally agree. I do. Again, this is a far cry, right, Magic, from saying Puff has no crimes to answer for. Like that, that's not what me and Pete are talking about. We don't think that there is no things that Puff hasn't done things that he should answer for. But I also know when they're trumping it up to make it look crazy.
Yeah. And the problem comes down to me, a very simple fact. While all this shit was going on, either A, nobody was complaining, or B, no appropriate law enforcement wanted to take on the rigors of going after it then. Because it's illegal to spike somebody's drink. That's like a big time crime.
Sure.
But
Bill Cosby went to jail for it.
Yeah. I mean, and good luck proving that you spiked somebody's drink 7 years ago. Good luck.
But again, that's why I think it's cheating.
Yeah.
That's what I think is cheating. It's like, okay, we can't prove this now, so let's trump it up. And the same thing for R. Kelly. You know what I mean? I'm like, R. Kelly was obviously guilty of child pornography, federal child pornography. If you record, if a person under the age of 16 is recorded while having sex, it's child pornography, even if both people are 15. That's a federal crime.
And almost everything with the government is a one-way ratchet system. You know, like say, for example, like civil lawsuit damages. One person somehow gets awarded $50 million for a stubbed toe. Now that's the new price of a stubbed toe. It's never, that was ridiculous, and we're not going to look at that as precedent in the future, and the price of a stubbed toe is like $100 now. No, whatever it goes up to, that's what it sticks at until someone goes further. That's what it sticks at. The same is true with the expansion of government purview. The same is true with, in this case, the expansion of definition of crime. You never see a law passed for a crime that then it is subsequently and systematically reduced and made more acute and narrow in its definition. It's always being expanded. They're always packing more actions into the definition of a crime, always.
And that's my point, Daryl Jackson. Daryl Jackson says, why is Homeland Security involved in this case? Homeland Security? Come on, man. Where's the national security threats? Feds are overreaching. And that's my point, Daryl. It's not that Diddy is not, you know, he shouldn't answer for some of the things he did. We saw some stuff on tape that he should answer for. And if they said, okay, we need to do this to make you answer for this, then I'm good with it. It's a bit of a miscarriage of justice, but I'm okay with that because I do believe in the ultimate harmony that's way past just simple standard justice. I do believe in the true idea of justice, which is harmony, you know, having a harmonious society. So I'm in, but I don't think it's like, okay, society is tired of him. We could do anything to him. We could take all the money back from him. We could take his life from him. We could take him away from his children. We could do everything we want to because society is so upset, right, with his behavior, his moral standings. We could do anything. I'm trying to settle y'all down to where you can understand. Pay attention to the charges. That's what I was telling my nephew Chris. Pay attention to the charges. Don't pay attention to the gossip in the streets. Look and read the indictment. Pay attention to the charges. Pay attention to the charges. The charges make the government do what's correct based off the law, because every last time they can, they're going to Jack Johnson somebody. They're going to Jack Johnson somebody that looked like me. That's always what they did.
Yeah, and as far as like the Homeland Security part, there are a few types of crimes that are under the umbrella of like the Secret Service through Homeland Security. And I think like one of them is like currency fraud.
Sure.
And another one I think is human trafficking, because of the international potential and how common international human trafficking is. That has to do then with borders and customs and all that shit. Now, like all human trafficking, I think defers into Homeland Security rather than Department of Justice. So I would assume it's that aspect as to why they are involved in that portion of the investigation.
And again, 3 different times we talked about the racketeering part, the RICO part. Nobody else is being charged. People are like, well, they're actually testifying, and I'm like, it don't work that way. Like when a RICO happens, everybody gets charged. You cut your deal after. Where is the rest of the people on the indictment for racketeering? Yeah. You can't be charged with a racketeering by yourself. It means you have an enterprise of businesses.
Yeah. They charge
even if those people that's involved are cooperating, they still should be charged. So when people don't get charged, same thing happened with R. Kelly. Y'all don't really understand what happened to R. Kelly. Like y'all know R. Kelly was a perverted old man, a sex deviant. You know, he had weird ways about how he interacted with women intimately or different ways, which what's weird now. But to say he's a racketeer, what's his enterprise? He didn't get charged with anything outside of child pornography. He got charged with racketeering. He got charged with trafficking, and he got charged with the Mann Act. Back to the point of Jack Johnson, that's the same thing. These are moral concepts. Again, we talked about the law, Pete. Like we talked about how the law, we get the premise of a law. We don't get 6 pages or 7 pages of a law, the whole laid out thing.
I think part of the issue with R. Kelly and the RICO thing is that I think that rather than racketeering, they thought the R in RICO, which I am guilty of this also, stood for remixing. So he went down for that. He didn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
The Pied Piper, you know, hey.
I just don't want people to think that I think these brothers shouldn't have to answer for things that they did against society's rules. That's not what I'm saying. Again, I'm talking about treat people fairly. Hold them accountable for what they did. Do not get ridiculous. And y'all should be very mindful of that. Y'all need to look up that indictment today. Take a little time. It ain't nothing but about 10 minutes of reading. Read through that indictment. Don't read through it with the same, mind of like, oh, this man is the worst person and blah, blah, blah. Read through it with a clear mind, deep breath, tea, so forth and so on. You feel me? And then read through it and let it process through your brain. That's what No Ceilings is all about. You know what I mean? We're about reading the information and not letting the outside influences curve our intellect. You know what I'm saying? Read through the thing and see how it makes you. How do you react? Think about how these things would work. Think about how these things would have to work. The whole case is built on Puff buying prostitutes. That's his enterprise. Look, everybody don't trick. Some of y'all in these comments trick. I think a decent amount of you in this comments trick. They will buy a prostitute. Some of you have been a John. You know what I'm saying? But that shouldn't be a federal law. Now, if you took it from a prostitute, bro, definitely salute to the chat, Yellow Arrows. Great point. Thank y'all still for being with us. No Ceilings live. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, noon Pacific Standard Time. No Ceilings the lunch hour. This is what we're here for. Back to the point. Read the indictment. It's only 14 pages. It's spaced out. It's double spaced. It's not a ton of stuff. and see if it makes you feel like John Gotti. They did a great job to skew the story, but just read it. And if you really want to get crazy, go read John Gotti's indictment after, and you will see the difference. Yet they're being charged the same. Like if you take prostitute vagina, it's a rape. I don't care. It was funny. I had a great joke. I was like, is that really rape or stealing?
I was going to say, I thought that was shoplifting.
Is that
Which means in Los Angeles, until they pass that prop law, you can not pay any prostitute under $500.
Is taking vagina, because taking prostitute vagina, should that be considered, the R word, or is that shoplifting, right? Imagine if that became the thought, right? You could play games with the law.
I guess it's like stealing a gun. You steal a gun. There's other things. You're not gonna get charged with only the shoplifting.
Shout out to Elmatic. Elmatic is right. Yo, hit that like button, please. I don't even know how to do this live stream. Elmatic, I need you on these things Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays to make sure you remind me. Hit the like thing. But imagine if they played with the letter of a law and they said, well, you know what? You sell vagina, so we have to charge this guy with shoplifting. Feel me? Like think about it. Some of this stuff is crazy. But we out of here. No Ceilings Lunch Hour. We'll see y'all Wednesday at noon. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Click that like button. Below is the link to No Ceilings, the podcast. Please subscribe to the No Ceilings podcast on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you get your podcast. We'll see y'all Wednesday at noon. Lunch hour.